Good evening. It is August 3rd, 2024, and this is going to be the tropical update for what is now Tropical Storm Debby. It was upgraded to a tropical storm as of the 5 p.m. advisory. It was a tropical depression, deemed a tropical depression late last night, and it has emerged off of the Cuban coast not too long ago, and it seems as though the center of circulation is located right here. And what's important is you can see a very explosive thunderstorms beginning to form around that low level center, which is an indication that we're starting to get some stacking upon the low level center. Also in range and also in focus, we can start to see good inflow from a lot of feeder bands or a lot of rain bands that are starting to make its way within the center. This is very indicative of a storm that is strengthening, and it looks like this storm is ready to take off. This system has been fighting land interaction, dry air, pretty much throughout the entirety of its life cycle. However, those conditions are starting to improve atmospherically, and it looks as though the system is poised to begin to strengthen. We can see a very, very large, expansive explosion of thunderstorms centered right over that low level center, and we're starting to get a lot more convection filling in. The system was a little dry, and it's partially due to the dry air and land interaction that was filtered into the system. However, the system is starting to do a good job at filtering out of that dry air into the storm, and it looks like the system is strengthening. It has a lot of warm water to deal with in the Gulf and work with. It looks as though that there's not too many factors that will keep this storm from blossoming in the near future. We're going to take a look at what the National Hurricane Center has to say about this storm. Like I mentioned, it has been deemed a tropical storm as of the 5 p.m. advisory, with winds of 40 miles per hour, moving at the northwest at about 15 miles per hour, currently located just west-southwest of Key West. And taking a look at our future track here, we can see that now the main difference in the future track is the National Hurricane Center is forecasting a hurricane upon landfall. You see that H there, and there are hurricane warnings in effect for some of the regions of the Big Bend in Florida. So the National Hurricane Center is beginning to ramp up their intensity of the system, and that's important because we see that there are atmospheric conditions in place that will allow it to grow and continue to strengthen. So as you can see here, the National Hurricane Center is forecasting a hurricane at landfall, 75 miles per hour at landfall. And honestly, I think that there's a chance that this may actually go up. Looking at the trends on satellite and looking at the trends on radar, it looks as though this system may begin to strengthen a little quicker than anticipated, sooner than later. So you may begin to see maybe this number at landfall creep up just a smidge. And it's because the atmospheric conditions are in place for the system to begin to develop. I want to just take a look at the upper air dynamics involved with Hurricane Debby, and we can see here a very, very low shear environment. It is sitting almost under an anticyclone, which allows the system to breathe. We can see here that the streamlines show nice outflow in mainly almost all directions. Now, this will change as the system begins to approach the shore, and there may be an opportunity for some shear to maybe come in, disrupt some of the flow. However, it's pretty much embedded in a really good location, and I don't really see much to really keep this storm from strengthening to hurricane status, or maybe just beyond that. We've already had a hurricane this year to do a little bit more in overachieving expectations in Hurricane Beryl, which reached Category 5 strength, the earliest on record in 2024. So we've already seen that some of these systems are already begin to overachieve thus far in the season. Now, well, let's talk about where the storm is going. We're pretty confident on the direction of the system, heading somewhere near the Big Bend area of Florida as it approaches from the south towards Florida, and maybe hook somewhere of a curve somewhere into the Big Bend area of Florida. Now, it's once it gets into that region that the models begin to get a little uneasy about what the situation is occurring after that. Our system begins to make its way north, and then it begins to make a little turn toward the north-northeast. Now, as you notice, there was a trough that was allowing the system to be picked up northward. However, that trough is going to begin to erode. That trough is located here. You have your high pressure located here. You have your another high pressure located just off the shore in the Atlantic. And then you kind of have this trough here. Now, what's going to happen as we move in time, that trough is going to begin to head out, and then you're going to see that that ridge is going to begin to move itself a little more in the way, somewhat stall over the southeast portions of the United States. That is important because with a landfalling system that is essentially not moving, you're talking about high rain totals. So in addition to a possible wind event in some of the coastlines in Florida, we're also talking about a major rain event possible for portions of the southeast United States. Now let's take a look at what the system is possibly going to do as it making its way toward Florida. So you can see here that the system begins to deepen as it makes its final approach into the Big Bend area of Florida. You see that pressure begin to really start to tail off from 994 to 989 and to 983 upon landfall. So that looks like the American model shows that there's a good chance that this storm is going to be strengthening on its way to approach. And we've seen situations like this where systems are strengthening all the way up until landfall. Michael is a good example, a more extreme example, but it was a good example of a system that was strengthening toward landfall. And given the current temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico this year, we cannot put off any additional strengthening than we see here on our future forecast. Now, taking a look at what the timing is, some areas may begin to see some tropical storm force winds as early as Sunday night heading into early Monday morning, depending on that track. If it's a little bit further to the right of the track, you may begin to see those winds a little sooner. If it's a little left of the track, there may be a slight delay in the winds. But the average seems to be somewhere around early Monday morning or late Sunday evening. Switching gears and taking a look at what's going on in the Atlantic, we do have some areas of interest to watch. We have here, of course, our tropical storm Debby sitting over here in the area of Florida. And then we also have a tropical wave located in the central Atlantic. It is void of thunderstorms right now, but there are indications that this wave may begin to perk up as it gets into the Caribbean. We also have another wave, looks like it's poised to make its way off of the coast of Africa, and looks like somewhat of a monsoon trough set up here in the central Atlantic. So we do have a lot of little areas and pockets of areas to watch, and this is that time of the year where we begin to see more development and more activity in the Atlantic and throughout the Atlantic as we get closer and closer toward peak of hurricane season. Just wanted to show you a quick future run of the EPS numbers depicting how things may become a little active as we head out in time. You can see here Hurricane Debby making its way past into Florida, but then we're starting to see a lot more of those models and a lot more of those members light up in the central Atlantic and then also in the Caribbean. So as we're heading toward August, there is an opportunity for some more systems to develop, and we definitely got to keep our eyes on those systems because we are getting close to the peak of hurricane season. That is it. Take care, be safe, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message, but make sure that you are keeping an eye on the updates at the National Hurricane Center and your local news authorities. Take care.